the quarterly update from IAB Tech Lab for IAB UK members. My name's Tina Lakani, and I'm joined today by Hilary Slattery. We're here today to talk to you about Q2 updates from IAB Tech Lab, and in specific focus on OpenRTB. Apologies, I've just noticed the date is wrong. We are, of course, in June, and the last webinar was on 29th of March, so apologies for the date, but yeah, let's get started. So a reminder for those of you who are not familiar with IAB Tech Lab, IAB Tech Lab are a sister organisation to IAB UK. While IAB UK focus on industry standards and best practices for the digital advertising industry, IAB Tech Lab are a sister organisation focused on global technical standards for the industry. So on the screen now, you can see a word cloud of some of the standards and initiatives that we are responsible for, and you can find the link to all of them on our website. In terms of responsibilities or priorities for 2023, I'm not going to go into these in too much detail. We spent a lot of time on the last webinar talking about IAB Tech Lab's priorities for 2023 and our areas of focus. But just as a reminder, the areas that we're focusing on this year are 5 pillars: consumer privacy, addressability and privacy, advanced TV, supply chain, and this year we've added an additional one which is focused on measurement. Again, we covered this a lot in our last webinar, along with all the kind of details of the products initiatives that we're expecting to deliver within this area this year. So if you do want any more detail on that, then I recommend that you watch back on the last webinar, and it's available on the IAB UK website. And I did also want to link to where you can find future webinars to be able to sign up to our entire series. In terms of updates, so I'm just going to speak to you briefly about all of these before I hand over to Hilary. The main focus on this webinar today is going to be on OpenRTB updates that have been finalised, but just an overview of what else has come out of IAB Tech Lab this quarter. So earlier this quarter in April, we launched our Privacy Implementation and Accountability Task Force. We short named that PIAT, and essentially this is dedicated to addressing essentially the implementation challenges that companies have when implementing privacy solutions. So it's an initiative focused on bringing together participants from kind of the legal side of the industry as well as the product side of the industry to develop practical solutions to actually implement privacy-focused solutions. It's also worth calling out the Transparency and Consent Framework 2.2 being finalised. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. I know IAB UK have provided a lot of information about this. The Transparency and Consent Framework is owned by IAB Europe, but IAB Tech Lab work to support from a technical perspective. So that was an area and initiative that we'd been focusing on earlier this quarter. Similarly, on kind of the continuing with the privacy theme, we launched an update to the global privacy platform. So the global privacy platform is an initiative that helps companies manage privacy strings on a global scale. The GPP works with initiatives like Transparency and Consent Framework and offers the ability to manage privacy settings in other geos. The first version of the GPP was launched at the tail end of last year, and version 1.1, which we are looking to finalize in the next week, so stay tuned for updates. But the version 1.1 was launched for public comment earlier this quarter. The public comment has closed for that now, and yeah, I think within the next week or so that you should be seeing announcements for that being finalized. And the last one is the OPJA, Open Privacy Joint Activation Guidelines. Essentially, those are interoperability standards for data clean rooms. Those were launched for public comment earlier this quarter, and again, should be finalized later, kind of this week or the next 2 weeks, essentially. The last one is the OpenRTB updates that were finalized. So in the last webinar, we would have talked about OpenRTB being out for public comment at the time of the last webinar, and they have since been finalized and is the content that we want to focus on a lot on in this webinar. We've had a number of questions from IAB UK members since this finalization. So Hilary has kindly joined us to talk about those. Before I hand over to Hilary, worth mentioning, to make sure that you're staying up to date and are aware of when one of our products are out for public comment. You, of course, can join us on these webinars, and we always cover kind of what's upcoming. But the best ways to stay up to date is by following us on our socials, following our website, or signing up to our newsletter, all of which I've provided details for on the screen now. But with that, I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to Hilary, who will talk further about OpenRTB.
Thank you so much, Tina. So hello, everybody. I am Hilary Slattery. I am the Director of Programmatic Product at IAB Tech Lab, which makes me the steward of the OpenRTB spec, which is the foundational way that signals are sent via the bid stream in programmatic. Please feel free, if you have any questions, to drop them into the chat, and I will be monitoring that and make sure everything gets answered. As I understand it, the focus of this webinar is going to be on the updates to how digital video is signaled, how in-stream digital video specifically is signaled in the bid stream. So I will be focusing there. But if you do have any other sort of general questions about the OpenRTB spec, feel free to email me at hilary@iabtechlab.com. But I will share my screen. This one, right? Yeah. And kind of give everybody an overview of the process to update these digital video definitions. So in September of 2022, a working group called the Digital Video Working Group, and actually I will call out before I get into this, any working group is open to any and all Tech Lab members. So if you want to get involved, feel like there's a material impact you can have on the industry and these signals, please feel free, if you're a Tech Lab member, to join all of these working groups. They're also up on the Tech Lab website. But moving in, so the Digital Video Working Group in September released guidance that required essentially a sound on requirement to be able to for digital video to be considered true in-stream video. Again, this is, and in this guidance, in this PDF, there are really only two definitions of video. There's in-stream and a pretty clear definition of what constitutes in-stream, and there's outstream. However, when it actually comes to setting up and sending those signals programmatically in real time, that is a different thing, and that is held in what's called the OpenRTB 2.x specification. This is in GitHub. This is free and open source for anybody to use. And you can also follow the page so that anytime there's an update, you'll get a little email notification to tell you, hey, something's been updated. And the URL there, and I'll send these all to Tina, is Interactive Advertising Bureau OpenRTB 2.x. And if you just click this little, star button, it will email you when there are updates and release notes. So moving on. So the way when a digital video ad opportunity is presented online, the way that in-stream or not is signaled is through this attribute. Historically, it's through this placement attribute. And that's a way for the publishers to say, what kind of video inventory it is. But because of the guidance that was released was what's called a breaking change, meaning you can't have both the legacy definition of in-stream and the new definition of in-stream, we've created a new attribute in order to enable what's called an upgrade path, so that publishers are able to send both signals simultaneously to make sure that the demand partners that are still working on supporting the new definitions don't get punished if they switch over. Those lists are what's held in are what's held in AdCom. So you can see the associated AdCom lists, right? So this will say like object video attribute placement equals 1. That means that it's signaled as in-stream under the old definitions. I will call out, looking at this list, even though in the guidance here in the PDF, it says like, this is in-stream and this is outstream. We like the actual spec, the actual signals have never had the word outstream in any of those signals. The update, the legacy definition or the new definition does not have the word outstream. And I realize that there is something of an education process happening here with the industry around, you know, there is excellent high quality video inventory that does not count as in-stream is still available. And there is an education process happening with the buy side to help them understand, you know, not everything that doesn't meet the requirements of in-stream is just rubbish video inventory. Sorry, excuse me. So from a process perspective, when that PDF got released in September, that kicked off a process within OpenRTB, which is the actual signaling specification, to update this. That process lasted from October of 22 to March of 23. It consisted of 4 different programmatic supply chains. So that's the large meeting that hundreds of people come to once a month, in addition to a subgroup that had between 30 and 40 sort of member companies who have a vested interest to create these updates. That subgroup consisted of quite a lot of publishers. It had Cafe Media, or now Raptive, in there. It had quite a lot of SSPs, including AdX, which is Google's SSP, and many, many others, in addition to demand side partners. So there was quite a lot of lean in. And in March, in February, it went for public comment. It was open to public comment for 30 days. And then it got pushed into the official specification. And during that time, there was pressers, trainings, webinars, you name it. So we did try to sort of evangelize these updates as much as possible, but we realized things take time, and this is a fundamental shift in how in-stream is signaled. And so what we've done is actually created what's called an implementation guide. And in this page, this actually has, I'll just redo it. So this actually has GIF examples below the actual text definitions of what constitutes each of the new signals. And we realized that there was one concession that I want to call out for this new attribute, this placement subtypes. We realized that Chrome defaults to sound off for video players. So we made a concession where it said explicitly clear user intent, which means if the referring URL says click here to watch a video about a thing, that still counts as in-stream. We also updated this guidance to say sound on, there must be an exact match of the video content to the page content. So if I go to a news article, the video that plays at the top it is the full viewport or most of the viewport, that video must have an exact match to what's on the page. We realize that these signals are a very large step forward and necessary, but they are also, we realize that there are things that are missing. So we know that signaling whether or not a player is able to or currently floating, which means like, when you scroll down, the player changes to a sticky position, or if the content is an exact or near or categorical match. All of these things it's a continuing iterative effort, and they're currently being worked on in the programmatic supply chain working group. There's also a very active Slack channel called Digital Videos Classification that, again, is open to any Tech Lab member. Just reach out to Tina or myself and we can get you added. Sorry, excuse me. But that is that is kind of the spiel, but I did want to leave as much time as possible to open to allow this group to ask questions of us, to see if there was any questions or comments or feedback.
Just to jump in, that I think participants can use.
Sorry, Tina, you're just muted, I think, or I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Just to jump in, that participants can use the Q&A function at the bottom to participate in any questions.
Yeah, and actually I'll just run through as people are typing their questions of the new definitions. So there's in-stream, and it must be the primary viewport, explicitly clear user intent, typically sound on outside of Chrome, exact match to the content, all of that good stuff. If that in-stream, if when the page loads, the player then goes to a floater player, that subsequent ad calls are no longer considered in-stream. They're one of the other definitions. Accompanying content that's typically on like recipe sites as you're scrolling down, a good example of this. And then you see there's a video, the hand in pan video that is giving you that is actually showing you how to create the actual recipe that's on the page. So again, exact match, still very high quality inventory. Users really want to see this. It's helpful to them. But it does not qualify as in-stream because it is not the primary, because it's not the primary video content on the page. Interstitial, we all know this. If we're playing Candy, or not Candy, like say 2048 or Solitaire on our phone, or clicking through a slideshow and a video ad pops up, but it takes up the entirety of the viewport or the vast majority of the viewport. That's an interstitial. And then no content or standalone, I'm sorry, my slideshow example hits in here. So if you're clicking through, say, different recipes or weeknight dinners or something, and a video ad plays, that is considered no content standalone. Or if it's just, say you load a page and there's a sticky player at the bottom and it has no content in it, it's just rolling ads, that's considered a no content. Sorry, excuse me. And then here's an example, a little actual code example of how to signal both the old attribute, which has been deprecated, by the way, and deprecated doesn't mean delete. It means we no longer support updates to that attribute. So anything net new implementations and signals should look to the new attribute, not the old attribute. But this is how to basically send both the old and the new values in the bid stream.
I'm not seeing any questions come in, Hillary.
I know. Are people, it's 2 p.m. People should have had a chance to have their coffee.
Well, I do find that sometimes we go into technical detail on these calls, and perhaps sometimes it's the teams that come in to mostly listen and refer back to their colleagues. So I guess if there are not any questions, and we are still on for a while, so if anyone wants to ping, then please do feel free. But as mentioned, if this content is relevant to others in your team, then please do know that we are recording the webinar and it will be made available on our website, on the IAB UK website, in the kind of section I linked to in my earlier presentation, for you to watch back or pass on to other colleagues.
Yeah, and also feel free to send Tina and I specific questions about implementations. We field these all the time. We realize that these can get a bit technical, but we field questions all the time. We're happy to help.
Great. Hillary, if you don't mind, I will just take over screen share.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. I just wanted to end the webinar with just a reminder of getting involved. So as Hilary mentioned, there are a number of opportunities for you to get involved with the Open RTB working group. We also have a number of additional working groups, and you can see a full list kind of broken down by topic or pillar that we have, and you can join any of these. Just to say, with your IAB UK membership, companies are offered, so IAB board members are offered a full IAB Tech Lab membership as part of their board membership, but for general members, IAB UK do offer a kind of individual membership to all IAB UK members. So what that means is that if you're not a member of Tech Lab and you're a member of IAB UK and you are interested in joining any of our working groups, IAB UK allow access for you to join one working group of your choice. So if you are interested in taking that up, then please do email myself or your kind of membership account manager to find out how you can get involved. With that, I think we are at the end of our webinar. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Hilary, for presenting. If you have any questions, here are our email addresses on the screen. But if not, we can take some time back. So thanks, everyone. Have a good one.